Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. On this gorgeous day, weekends are the best, right? So today I'm going to talk about sort of making it in Hollywood or making it in show business. It's something that I think is rarely really discussed from anyone who's actually seen a huge number of successes and failures in various industries. I come to you in a very special capacity that I've seen the following industries pretty closely, and I have family members. If I wasn't in it personally, I've got family members that are in it here in LA, and my family is not always blood related. You know, when you move away from home, you tend to spend more time with your friends than your family, and your family turns into your friend, and your friends turn into your family. I was personally in the video game business. I did absolutely every single job that you can do in that business, including owning my own company a couple times. The music business, I've seen it all the way up to, family members of mine with 5 platinum albums, to my own endeavors for video games and personal efforts that I made a lot of money doing in the mid-90s. And then there's film and television. Most of my personal experiences in film. I've done plenty of interviews about television. There's just a lot of financial benefits to being in the television business. Television used to be a joke. People would really say, I wouldn't want to be anywhere but the silver screen, and today television blows away the silver screen in most cases. Now, in terms of television and film, most of my experience is obviously behind the camera. I've never personally I've been in front of the camera a couple times, but the scenes got cut, man. You'll find it's much more interesting behind the camera, and the lifespan of your career is exceptionally longer behind the camera, right? If you want to be famous in front of the camera, then you need to look at how long a sports player typically is famous, how long a musician's famous. If you're female, it's very, very tough. They only want you during your cute little, rubbery days of your skin's tight and all that kind of stuff. They won't want you as much once you get wrinkles. It's a brutal world. It's a brutal world. It's a very brave thing to get into. So I'm going to go through some of the things that I went through in being in the Midwest without any of this and looking at it from afar, and then what I found when I got here. When you're sitting in the Midwest or sitting in any remote location and your life is it's good, it's great, it's balanced, you got your family around you, your friends, whatever. But the major thing that comes into your life that is completely different than the sort of average frequency of happiness is music, is television, is film. You see these things and they're bigger than life. People get on stage and they are unbelievably talented. Maybe you go to concerts in your local area. Maybe you're too young for that and you're just really listening to it on the internet, downloading it. You're watching movies in the movie theater, movies at your house, Netflixing them, HBOing them, television shows. You look at publicity, some TMZ thing, and you see people loving someone, and you think, God, I would really love to be in the pool of all that acceptance, right? Sally Field's thing, right? Her Mandela effect. You love me, you really love me, turn into you like me, right now you really like me. But Sally Fields showed us an amazing gift, because she wasn't, and for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, she went up and got an Oscar once in the late 90s, and she essentially poured out her heart about what really was going on for her, which was that people were loving her work, and that meant something to her. And it was the entire reason why she became an actress, was to get the love in her life that she wasn't getting from anywhere else. And everybody just kind of, whoa, is that what we're all about? And the answer is, hell yes, that's what you're about. I did an episode on fame, and I did an episode on talent, and both those episodes are really good sort of follow-up courses to this particular episode. In the talent episode, I really just break down, how you get it, and this thing called natural talent and what that really is. In fame, I tell you, there really shouldn't be anything like that in your life in terms of your goal setting towards fame. If you set a goal to fame, you will almost invariably never be successful at what you're doing. Fame is something that just simply happens because you're doing what you love and people love what you do. But you don't wake up in the morning and do it for fame, right? But when you talk about making it in show business or Hollywood, you're bringing together all of these different vectors and all these different talents and desires into one thing. And it's a sick little formula if you get one of the ingredients off, right? You could have everything else right, but you really want fame. So in desiring fame, you're killing your talents, you're killing your opportunities. One of the great examples that Steve Jobs said was, look, we don't make things because you told us you want us to make them. We make things because we want to make them for ourselves and we want to use them for ourselves, and you just happen to like them. And that's how he kept Apple on top. That's how Apple blew past all the competition. When Microsoft was having a marketing meeting asking people what they want, when they have no clue what they want. They're not technical. They don't know what their capabilities are, what the spectrum of a capability is, right? Sadly, since Steve Jobs died, Tim Cook went right into that realm, and he's killing the company. But say you come to Hollywood. Let's say you come to Hollywood and you don't want fame. You really want to make things happen, but you don't bring the talent. So now your little trifecta of things that you need to make it here, you didn't bring one of the points in the triangle. The other one is really willing to work extremely hard at what you do, right? I'm going to get this out really quick. I did this episode. It was an hour and a half, and I imported it into my Mac, and of course, it said it got the video, and it didn't. I had a huge interruption, too, because the guy was doing his lawn back here. So it's better that I do this again. But right off the bat, what I want to tell you is this. Your Uncle Mark says, if you want to get into any of the industries I just talked about, video games, music, film or television, you need to understand that the people that will control your career, and again, music, you can do it by yourself at your house, If you want to get super access to amazing producers, you can almost email them and figure out a way to get them paid somehow. But you have to understand that the talent level that you have to have it has to be everything that you have seen on television. If you're a dancer, you need to learn how to dance. You have to learn how to count, and you have to learn how to dance with others, and you have to learn to communicate. It's all about, relaying what you do. And you can't not dance in real time and think that that's going to work out. It's not going to work out, as much as I wish that would. There's these apps that kids use to dance in halftime. They literally play the song in halftime, and these kids dance. They do amazing jobs, but it's not reality, right? How can you tell a movie set, okay, everybody, let's go slow motion? I dearly wish that worked, but it won't work. If you sing to radio music and you think you can sing, well, you need to get a recorder out and record your voice and listen to it back and let other people listen to it back who are singers, people who are music teachers. Ask them if you're in tune. You need to feel songs from the heart. You want to be an actress or an actor, well, you're going to have to get scripts and do them, and you're going to have to get scripts that are completely opposite of who you are as a human being and do those too. And that's just the basics. That's just the basics. You got to come up with this stuff. You want to play an instrument, you have to be able to get on stage. Someone says what key you're in, and they can read off like 5-note transitions, give you some general structure for the melody. You need to have played 300 songs, if not 3,000 different songs. And when someone says, okay, it's just like James Brown's song, ba ba ba, but we're going to make a little transition here, you need to go, yes, okay, I got it. But if you want to be a musician, you're going to have to write your own music, because they're not sitting around waiting for you to do covers. That's for wedding singers and, high school performances or something. If you are even remotely talented enough to join the forces of Hollywood, then wherever you exist, your entire community knows that you're the best at that thing. What do I mean by that? If you want to come to Hollywood and do some band stuff and you play the guitar, that means if you live in Colorado Springs, the whole town knows your name, and the whole town goes, that dude or that girl is the best guitar player. I mean, I went to that club and they walked in and it was like Jimi Hendrix or Yngwie Malmsteen or whatever it is. They blew us away non-stop. Could have played for 4 hours straight. They're so good. If you're a singer, you have to be that talented. If you're a dancer, you have to be the best dancer in your town. And you should probably, just not out of seeking fame, but just out of word of mouth, people go, that girl or that dude is the most amazing dancer I've ever seen. You're in plays, you're in all kinds of stuff because you can't stop it. It's what you do, it's what you love, and you're so damn good at it that no one can stop you. And so you're everywhere. It goes on and on down the line, obviously. If you're a programmer and you want to get into video games, you're already a badass programmer and you've already created your own game. Before I ever moved to California to get into various arts, especially doing video games, I don't know how many video games I created between the age of 11 and 17. The first thing I ever created was a video game. In fact, I think I created 3 video games for every utility I ever wrote. My computer had 32K of RAM, okay? A megabyte is 1024K, right? Now we have gigabytes and gigabytes of RAM, right? Right now we have a disease that people want this fame, and they also want to take as many shortcuts as possible, as if there's some sort of shortcut to talent. There's absolutely no shortcut to talent. There's a shortcut to opportunity, right? You've got the talent, it is amazing, and you now would normally have to go through this company to get discovered, but the shortcut is you go create your own company. You're going to have to go through millions of auditions. Instead, you go to a party and you meet the right person. There's plenty of shortcuts for opportunity. But again, if you don't bring the talent, what's going to happen is you'll have that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and you won't bring the talent. And then your name goes in a little black book of never ever talk to this person again. And those books exist. They exist up here in our heads in Hollywood, and they exist in true written form. I've been to clients' sites, their houses, and I was in their office. I've seen this a couple times, and there's a list of like 30 names, and it says the shit list across the top. I even knew one of the guys on the shit list. I saw it, and so I asked, I said, "What is this?" And my client was like, "That's our shit list. Those people have earned themselves a place in the never talked to category." And I have one guy on my list. Hollywood sees the best talent in the world all the time. The best talent. They turn it down all the time. They have to pick. There's only one chair that's going to be a role in a movie, and there's 1,000 kids outside auditioning for that role. What are they going to do? Give out trophies for effort? No, because the real world doesn't work like that, right? They're going to pick the very best kid that matches every single little nuance of the script, and that kid gets a job. And I guarantee you, in most cases, they know they've left behind 4 or 5 other kids. They might hire a couple kids as alternatives in case something happens to the main character. But if you aren't super mega special, stay home and have kids. Get a normal job. And if you think that's a competitive term, like I'm competing with you or I'm pissing on your parade, then fine. Take all that anger and turn it into talent. Double, triple, quadruple your talent. Be amazing, because you're going to have people in the industry turn their head and go, "Whoa, was that coming out of you? Did you just sing those notes? Holy shit. All right, let's do this again." Maybe that was a freak accident. You audition and they're blown away. You captured all the emotion. You danced in real time and you danced awesome, and they go, wow, I've never seen any of those moves before. And I've seen a lot because the internet exists now, right? Now, if you even remotely have a chance of succeeding in these industries, then my next comment will not be something I need to tell you, but I'm going to say it because you will be surrounded by the losers who need to hear this comment. Okay? Hope that makes sense. And I say it very specifically like that because that's what these people who would contradict this recommendation will turn into. And they'll be very angry that they were wrong. I'm telling you some basic hard truths about getting in this stuff, right? And what'll happen with the losers is that they will run off and try to talk to other losers who will tell them that there are shortcuts to everything I'm telling them. That somehow they don't have to have any talent. And what they'll do is they'll cite an anomaly on the internet. Some, Kim Kardashian who made a porn who is, by some standards hot as hell, right? She has been at times, right? She's a mother now, so we're going to withdraw too many comments like that about her. She got her whole family famous. Now, her father was a famous attorney, worked on the O.J. Simpson case, so it wasn't exactly like they started from zero. They had plenty of money to sit around and fuck around. But they turned it into something, and they parlayed it right in the middle of this ghastly, reality show stuff. And if any of you believe that stuff is real, stay where you are, please. All reality shows are scripted, regardless if they're real or not, in terms of, say, like a guy's treasure hunting in a cargo container, which that show was completely fake, but they'll come in the room and say, okay, you need to have an argument with this person. I don't care what you do, just argue. Roll it. Sound. Go. Action. And then they just ad-lib something together, get really angry. It's not real. Hopefully it's not that entertaining to you. Typically, if you are someone who is talented, your list of people that can actually entertain you is extremely short. If you have any hope of making it in this industry out here, and I sit down with you and I say, who are your influences? There are some pretty deeply rooted influences. And when I say, why is that person influenced to you, you have a really good answer. And you probably will not have a single teeny bop pop star on your list, right? Because you understand that there is a void that you're filling with your talent. And what do I mean by that? We know that today's entertainment is very plasticky. The amount of people that are famous for doing something but have really contributed very little to the actual brilliance of what they're doing is well over 50%. For instance, when I grew up in the 70s, I was surrounded by mega talent, and I mean mega talent, man. You turned on the movies and the actors were all phenomenal actors. You turn on TV and you had legendary shows on TV. You have, and I know you're trying to say, well, maybe that's what you consider to be legendary, and we have legendary shows today. It's like we have legendary HBO shows, we have legendary Netflix shows, but normal cable is just, shove your hand down your throat and puke. But the music, the artists wrote and arranged and performed their own music. They didn't buy it from somebody else, right? Even Elton John, that never wrote a single lyric, he wrote the music to the lyrics. He wrote the music. It is the music that makes anything, sing, literally speaking, right? So today you have folks that are talented, like take a Justin Bieber, very talented kid. He can really sing. He plays the drums, and he has his, we all don't really think that fondly of him here in Los Angeles because we see his bratty bullshit, but he's a kid, so whatever. But he's got pipes and he can sing. By the age of 14, he was special at 14 because he didn't play basketball. He didn't fuck around with a bunch of other stuff. He focused on his skill set. And so when he auditioned for Usher at 14, I believe that's his age, Usher just went, what? Now, Usher was the same exact thing. Usher was a little Michael Jackson. He could dance and sing, and he had a style. He still does to this day, but he found Justin Bieber, and it was all over. Now, Justin doesn't write his own music. He just sings. He doesn't write the lyrics half the time. He is sang Kelly Clarkson songs, right? But he has, through his producers and through the people around him, he's able to create songs that people fall in love with, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? But you need to know, you would need that huge support team behind you if you're going to come in at his level. But what did he bring? He brought some fortunate genetics, right? He's not ugly. So especially the 12-year-old girls that like the 14-year-old kid, right? I've obviously never seen him on stage, but I know the people who have, and they, I've seen videos of him playing the drums. It blew me away. That was awesome. And, I'll even find myself in some retail outlet that's playing his song, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good song. Oh, crap, that's Justin Bieber. Wow. So some people will see him as a shortcut. Well, he just auditioned for Usher, and then boom, he got his career. And it's like, okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. But what did he bring? And what do you think his life was like after he got selected by Usher? That's the other side-stepping thing people don't think about. The amount of pressure on a talented person who is being used to sell either movie tickets or advertising on a television show or singles on iTunes is go, go, go. You cannot rest. You cannot hold still. If you get any time off, it is very limited, and you're usually struggling to get somewhere in the world that you really want to be, right? If you're a musician and you have to go on the road, which is the only way you ever make any money, and for those of you who think you're going to make money off iTunes, good luck. Right? Musicians, they do release their albums, and once you do release one gigantic platinum album, the next platinum album is a lot easier, right? But it's that first one that's a pain in the ass, right? So the first one, you're going to have to tour the world, tour your region of the world, to make sure people know you exist. Because if they don't know you exist, then they go to the record store and they don't know. They go to iTunes, they don't search on your name. So that first kernel of acknowledgement's tough. Well, how do you get on tour? Well, you're going to have to perform somewhere where someone's going to see you and say you should open for whatever band. You should open for Justin Bieber. You should open for Black Sabbath, because you're of that ilk of music. The people who already are coming to the stage want to see you, want to see that type of music. You're just more of the great stuff that, that they already want. But you're going to have to tour and record at the exact same time. You're going to be in a bus. And I'm telling you, this whole thing that you'll see, rock videos or whatever, and everyone's flying from point A to point B on private jets, let me tell you, it happens, okay, but within a particular music genre, where you have all the musicians that are amazing in that genre, the legends of the 70s, where you had a lot fewer bands, right, because we didn't have the internet to make everyone release a song, which is fine too. It's actually really great that we get a lot more music nowadays. But back in the day when the money was super duper focused, there's only a few bands that could just hop in a Learjet and go anywhere they wanted to, because that shit's really expensive. A lot of bands with tons of platinum albums were driving in buses because it's the only way to afford it. And imagine you're doing a concert in Detroit, and then you got to go to New York City within 24 or 48 hours. So you're in a bus the whole time, and sleeping on those things is tough. You got people hanging around you that want you to pay attention to them. You get there, you're exhausted, but you got to go on stage and perform for 90 minutes, 2 hours. And you're supposed to be writing new music at the same exact time that's supposed to be better than your last album. Meanwhile, you're broke because your record deal is so screwball. It was really interesting. I was, I only tell you this so that you understand the circles that I'm in. So I'm not really very close to the music industry anymore because the bands that I worked with have broken up. They're not touring anymore, whatever. So it's sort of been calm for 2 or 3 years, okay? But there's one band out there that's doing really, really well. They're a household word in a particular genre, and I thought that bad record deals were over. I thought that once it was exposed that, Chuck Berry had a bad contract, Little Richard had a bad contract, and various people came around and helped them out, like Michael Jackson, I think, bought up all Little Richard stuff and gave it back to him so he could make some money in his lifetime. That stuff was over. And apparently it is alive and well to this day. There's still horrible record contracts out there. And the other problem is that sometimes there's a decent record contract, but the artist really wants to be super rich and super famous, and they don't really make that much money. In fact, most of these guys don't make more money than your father or your mother. I mean, it's amazing. Or you. You know, they might make, say, $150,000 a year. But they want to live like they're making $1.5 million a year. And so they're buying cars or leasing cars and renting homes and buying clothing. And they have no money to pay for it at all. So within the last 6 months, I was made aware of a story, or a piece of truth actually, about an individual who is in a really great band, and he's broke. He's absolutely broke. In fact, he's in debt several $100,000. And it's partly because he got a wonky record deal, but the other part is that he's spending too much. And the fear is that he's going to end his career, because he has a lifespan in his career. Okay, this band has been around for quite a while. It's very, very successful. However, the end is within probably half a decade of the big money. And if something doesn't change, if a bankruptcy doesn't help him out and he gets his kind of back on his gears, he's going to end up really, really upset with his life. So here's the other thing about building your talents, right? Now, some of you have a talent, and it's amazing. It's one of those talents you just bumped into as a kid. Your brain literally clicks with that talent, whatever it is. If you're a comedian, you're a total ham. You've been a ham your whole life, right? If you're a comedian or an actor, in fact, really any one of these things, you need to be pretty much a ham. You like getting in front of people. You're not shy at all, because how could you be? How could you be if you're going to be entertaining masses? Some people try to record everything at home, and this is for everything. Comedians and actors and musicians, they try to live in a laboratory, and then once they kind of realize by talking to agents and managers that just simply doesn't work monetarily speaking, you have to get up and perform in front of a live audience. Again, you could be on a sitcom, and you're going to have to walk out in front of a live audience. Think about being on a show like Saturday Night Live. You're not only in front of a live audience, but you're reading your lines on cards, because they change between rehearsal and the actual showtime. So you got to be comfortable reading in front of millions of people watching you on television. Talk about some pressure, right? Very few people in this world actually believe their own hype if they're successful. Elvis Presley, perfect example. Talk about a gentleman from the South. He never believed the hype about him, ever. But he was the king of rock, right? And so he got extremely nervous before he would go on stage. And like I said in previous episodes, some of you know this already, he'd forget his lyrics. He said, I forget my lyrics. But the music starts playing and it all starts coming back to you. This weird experience. How rappers do it, it blows me away. How they can go on, and the amount of lyrics are just unbelievable. And they're dense, and they've rearranged all their songs from the album days. And so it's like, well, how did you make the song today? Because it's a little bit different than you did it last year at your other concert, your other tour. What I have found in my own travels is that you will be by yourself at your house, whether you have family around you or not, it's sort of irrelevant, and you'll be practicing your art, whatever that is, right? And you can only go so far. If any of you have ever seen a donation thermometer on a piece of paper, right? Some churches raising money, the firefighters are trying to raise money, and your school's trying to raise money. You go by that thermometer every day. It's like maybe it's a can drive or something, and they keep filling in the red. It keeps going up and up and up. I want you to put that thermometer in your head when it comes to making it out here, which is that if you're just sitting there by yourself at your house, under most circumstances, okay, the skill set that you need to succeed is the 100% thing, right? I think personally, and this is just sort of my gut experience with a bunch of the celebrities I've been able to work with and hearing, because I interview them about their life. I say, look, how'd you get started? Where were the challenges? What did you think? And what were you corrected on about your perception of the world? Sitting at home by yourself, you can probably fill in about 25% of the thermometer, but then there's a ceiling. There's nothing you can do at home to put another pixel of red ink in that thermometer. You've got to get out and work with some other people to continue the flow of the thermometer, right? Now I'm going to parse the other 75% of this thermometer, but this is just kind of a guideline. Don't think of it as like a rule book. He said that the next 25% has to be done this way. You can, if you have the guts, you can skip ahead of one of these steps and you'll automatically get credit for the section before. But let's just say you're a musician or an actor, right? Those are really the two main realms we're going for here. You're going to have to go from your basement or your garage, and you're going to have to perform in front of live people in a small venue, at least, right? You could even say you're going to perform for your family, but the problem with your family is that they're going to tend to embellish how well you're doing. You can also get asshole brothers and sisters that hate the fact that you're surpassing them, and they'll crap on your parade, and they're completely inaccurate in their assessment of you. So best not to use your closest family members unless you guys are all very kumbaya and friendly to each other. And there's families like that, and it's awesome. If you're an actor, you're going to have to go get in a play. You are. Now, there'll be exceptions to this rule, and you'll say, this guy's full of shit because I know someone that went from their basement directly to commercials. Again, they skipped the step I'm talking about, and that's fine. If you got the balls and you got the guts and you have the talent, then fine. If you're a comedian, well, what are you going to do? You're going to perform in front of a mirror for a long time. Maybe you'll videotape yourself, watch it back later, and maybe there's a shot in the dark you actually have an objective eye on your own performance, and you're like, that wasn't very strong. How could I redo that joke? Okay, the lead-in's a little too long. The punch takes too long. Okay, refine, boom, now it's a badass joke. But at some point, you're going to have to go in front of other people to validate yourself, right? Justin Bieber, let's go back to that dude. He was in a bunch of talent contests, right? Was it Ryan Gosling was a dancer and a singer as a little tiny kid? Isn't it interesting that a lot of people that you think, I don't know, just fell uphill, they've been at this forever. All the Mouseketeers from the Justin Timberlake days over to the Britney Spears days, all of them were in talent contests. They weren't just Jean-Benet Ramsey's, letting their mother dress them and being cute in front of other people. They were actually performing a skill, using their voice, using their mind, using their heart to bring out performances, right? Their talent was above average. In fact, it was up there at that almost undefinable level of, damn, this is so good, I'm not even sure who to compare them to. It's interesting, before we go on here, you have Jimi Hendrix, who obviously was an amazing guitar player. He lived with his guitar. Once he was given a guitar, he carried it with him everywhere he could possibly go. He even had it mailed to him when he joined the military. After he got out of the military, he just carried it into every store, into every place he ever went. If he went to a restaurant, he carried it with him. He slept with it. And when you watch him play, he's not looking at the neck to figure out what chord he's in. He feels it in his heart and soul, and he just pushes it into his right hand, right? But then you have someone like Prince. And Prince obviously used a lot of Jimmy's sort of themes, right? This sort of paisley-looking 60s thing, but he kind of upped it to the 80s, and it was cool. But you see that brother play the guitar, and you're like, wow, there's so many things like the way he plays. It feels very Jimmy-ish. But then there's this thing that's just straight-up Prince. He has his own frickin' sound. And so, even though you can feel the influence of Jimmy and Prince, both of them are ascended to a level that is essentially their own mountaintop. He has his mountaintop, Jimmy. Prince has his mountaintop. Stevie Ray Vaughan has a mountaintop between them. They ascended so far beyond any of the influences that you really can't track it. They became their own amazing thing, and that's what you have to become. When you watch Jack Nicholson in his prime acting, do you really say Jack Nicholson feels like Kirk Douglas? No. Jack Nicholson is Jack Nicholson. That's why people do impersonations of Jack Nicholson, because when you do him, even mildly accurately, you know who they're impersonating. Christopher Walken, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. Any actor or actress that you can put your finger on that you say they're amazing, I love them. Typically, they compare to no one. They have their own thing, and this is what you have to do. You have to take your life experience, and instead of fighting it and trying to impersonate someone else so you can get to your mountaintop, you have to build your own mountain. I'll tell you one of the things that I discovered when I started singing as a kid. I had a friend of mine that had a band that was doing a bunch of cover songs. This is high school. And I love singing Led Zeppelin. I love singing a bunch of different stuff. But I went in to sing for his band once, and because the lead singer threatened to quit, and so they said, help us out here. We don't think he's going to quit, but we want you to show up and sing in his place. And when he sees that, he's going to apologize to us, and he's going to come back to the band, which is exactly what happened. I actually have the video of his side of the game. But I started singing Robert Plant, and I was trying to impersonate him because I thought that's what they wanted. And my buddy walks up to me and goes, "You sound great, but sing it in your voice. Make it yours." And it really shocked me. I was like, oh, okay. Fast forward like 20 years plus, 25 years, and a buddy of mine, I was at a restaurant that I used to help redo and paint and all this other stuff, and it's just my buddy's restaurant, and he had a karaoke guy come in, and I at the point I absolutely hated karaoke. I thought it was the worst, excruciating thing to witness. And this guy, I didn't know him, he's now a very close friend of mine. There's almost no one there. There's like two people there, and I was like, man, I would never even attempt this in front of other people. Part of it was just my chicken shitness to sing in front of other people, but I sing everywhere else I go. I've sang on my own songs and all this other stuff, so why am I afraid? These people are tone deaf, just butchering songs. Why don't I sing? So he gives me the mic, and he plays like some Guns N' Roses song or something, and I sing it. And he goes off to the restroom, and then he comes back, and he's looking at me with these big eyes, and he's like, "You can sing? I didn't know you could sing." I was like, well, yeah, I guess I can. Jeez, right? And so I started singing karaoke. It was funny, right? And it was really good practice for everything that I love. It was getting to sing the songs I love with the passion in my heart for what I think the songwriters meant when they wrote the songs, entertaining other people when they scream and yell when you're done. It's pretty cool. But I started doing the impersonation thing. So every once in a while I'll impersonate like Bon Scott or something, and that's just fun. I know the crowd understands what I'm doing. I'm impersonating him, and it's karaoke music. It's not professional music. It's just something fun to do, right? But just even doing karaoke warmed me up. So like 4 years later, after I was really just mastering some of these songs, I was invited to sing at a wedding of a bunch of platinum artists from the 80s. And so I go up to stage, and I am now singing live with a real band. I've never done that particular type of configuration before because I usually play all of my own stuff. And, I've got name brand 80s glam rock people all inside the crowd. And one of my brothers from another mother came up to me, and he looks at me and he goes, "I didn't know you could sing." He goes, "That was totally in tune. That was great." And I was like, I'm looking at myself going, well, I just do it because I love it. But I guess I have this skill. I mean, this is really strange, right? Weird. If I was in my 20s, I'd probably jump into it full bore and really go for it, find a band and sing for it. But I'm in my late 40s, and I know what that world's about. I've seen my family members, run around the world at late 50s, and it kicks their ass, and they're so talented they can just do it in their sleep, right? So endurance is a huge thing when you talk about making it in Hollywood, because again, the pressures are on you hardcore. But the most talented people that you admire make it look super easy, and that is the kiss of death. If you don't understand that they're making it look easy, you are setting yourself up for a real big disappointment. That's why they're superstars. And a lot of times that's why the drugs got involved with music, because music is way more grueling than any acting regiment. Because of the buses, because of the pressure to make your next album. Like an actor just has to go in and be them, and someone else writes all the words that they're going to be saying, and they just have to perform it and live in that other character. Become the other character. Again, there are exceptions to even that. Heath Ledger, who went off and did the Joker, locks himself in an apartment in New York for, 3 months? Becoming the Joker. Well, that dude took his art very, very seriously, and in the end, it seemed to eat him alive, right? So cocaine and anything that was an upper really became a huge part of the music industry, because it was the only way that a human being could really adhere to this regiment. The managers and producers that ran them did it too. But they got a lot more time off, right? They could go to bed at night and skip the concert if they wanted to. Whereas these other guys, who you think have been sleeping all day in a Four Seasons, super palatial penthouse, yeah, they're in a crappy fucking bunk bed in a fairly nice bus, dealing with some guy that wants to play the guitar while you're trying to sleep. Some guy brought a groupie on the bus and she can't shut the fuck up. It was at least a brutal world. I've seen this stuff personally, okay? I'm going to share a story from a guy. I drop his name every once in a while, and I don't want you to think I'm just name dropping here, because he's one of the guys I'm going to mention so that you can focus on what you know about him, so you can appreciate how easy he makes it look. All right? So, LL Cool J, James Todd Smith, obviously made it as a rapper in the late 80s. He owned the rap industry. He was the best in the fucking world when he was on top of it. As soon as, grunge came and gangster rap took over the 90s, he continued his music career, but he was smart. He realized the jig was up. He wasn't going to go dark, even though he tried a couple times. Because the funny thing about Cool J is that he lived the true stick-up kid life in Queens, New York. He saw a bunch of horrible shit that no one should ever see. His family being attacked with shotguns and all kinds of stuff, right? I mean, read his book. Get his book and read it. It'll blow your mind how he has still remained this sweet gentleman and a brilliant human being at that. The guy, like I say all the time, he is as nice as you think he is, and he is as brilliant. He's more brilliant than you could ever know. Let me tell you. If you think he just memorizes his lyrics, think again. He remembers probably everything he reads. Scientific things, not just whatever. I mean, he's amazing. So, I had the privilege of working with him for a year solid on a project called Boom Dizzle. You can look it up on YouTube. I got to design it and draw it and engineer it, and it was cool. But in meeting with this guy, right? So I'm a huge fan. He, as I've said over and over and over again, he influenced me as a kid. He had a song called Breakthrough on his album Bigger and Deffer. When I came to California, I used the song Breakthrough on my radio in my car to galvanize me to prepare for pretty much what this episode's all about. It's basically the lyrics of Breakthrough. And part of it was to build yourself up to be the most amazing thing you can be, and realize that people will be envious of you and try to knock you down. That's really sort of life, right? Everyone's jealous 24/7. So I'm having meetings with him on a regular basis. He comes to my North office all the time in Culver City. Now, trying to have a meeting with him is where you start to realize his work regiment. The brother's up at like 4:30 in the morning to get to work. He's got his lines sent to him the night before for his NCIS LA show. Now, he's also, writing new music usually, even though his albums are a little slower now. He's still preparing new albums, and he's also preparing concert tours, because it's just fun. It keeps him on his toes, and it's money. Why not go get it, right? He also hosts the Grammys, so there's that whole thing once a year, preparing for that. But he will, on any particular day, he'll go to the gym really early. He has to eat between his work efforts, and he eats very specific foods to keep himself extremely healthy. Technically speaking, I looked him up. He's 6 feet tall, but I tell you, if you ever meet the guy, you'll swear to God he's 7 feet. He's one of the biggest guys physically, and he's totally proportional. It's amazing. But he's a monster. He's a Hulk. It's tremendous, right? He's bigger than he ever was during Mama Said Knock You Out. But he's got that chieftain gene, where he's a leader. He's just an absolute leader, and he's a leader that you could trust because he has a pure heart, and he believes in God, and he's God-fearing, and it just makes him an amazing human being. Well, we would have to, let's say we had a meeting scheduled at like 6 o'clock. Well, shooting schedules on television shows don't adhere to any outside meeting you might have made for someone. So we would get there all at 6 o'clock, and we'd start getting the calls and the text messages that the shoot's going a little long, so we're going to have to wait. So here's a guy who's been up since 4:30 in the morning, and he gets to me maybe, say, 7 o'clock, 7:30. He has some fruit with him that he'll be eating. You could tell he's exhausted, but he still has energy to sit down and talk with me about an entrepreneurial venture to create a music studio online so people can create music anywhere they are in the world on one interface. It worked. It was cool. Probably a little bit ahead of its time. I just found the patents the other day on my hard drive that we all have mutually on this product. It's really cool. But now here's the thing. It was a year of this, over and over. I'd meet him at his office, and we go to William Moore's agency to do demos, and he'd be at my place, and just seeing his regiment in a very disciplined way, and seeing him work the gym into it. If you think you go to the gym and work out, chances are, unless you're a dedicated bodybuilder, you go to the gym in a completely different way that he goes to the gym. So when I saw that, it was just like, wow, this is very, very intense. And I know very few people on this planet, including myself, who could probably do this year in and year out. That show's been on the air over half a decade now, right? It's almost a decade now, if it hasn't already hit a decade. Over and over. I'm sure it gets a little bit easy. I'm sure there's a little bit of muscle memory in there, but any of you have watched the documentaries on Johnny Carson and his show, his 30-year show he had on the air. Think about it. You have all these guests every single day. You barely get time off. You got to learn all the new questions. It's all scripted. It's intense. And lump onto that the Grammys, lump onto that doing music tours. Yes, there are months when he doesn't shoot, but then he goes and visits his family in New York, and I think his asshole's breaking in his house at night, which he very judiciously took care of. And you have to maintain your sanity. You have to maintain your soul. And he does it. True inspiration from top to bottom. You don't always meet your idols when you were a kid and find out that they're cool. Sometimes you find out they're pretty cranky people. I've only had one person in my entire life that was like that. I probably did a really bad job introducing myself to him. So he was like, get away. Go, see you later. Bye. See you later. He kept saying that to me. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I walked up to you with no one else around you and said hi, right? But there's a very interesting story he told me, Cool J told me, that I think is valuable for you guys, which is when he's making his first album, Radio. Because there was a point in the product that we were designing and building that we were up against some technical hurdles, and he was simply saying, look, if we don't solve these problems, someone else is going to do it, and whoever solves these problems takes it all, right? And I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, it's bizarre that a musician and an actor is telling me how to engineer software, but you know what? The guy is completely correct, and because he's so smart, he's really seeing all the moving parts. He's completely correct. He was my mentor in an industry that he never worked in. That was awesome. But he goes, look, when I was making my first album, he said, I got some recording time in a studio downtown New York, and he goes, I was the only one that went every single day that I had the studio at my disposal. I went in there, and I'm supposed to have my other musicians there with me, the producers working with me, and they, they're friends of his at the time, I believe. And he said, they didn't always show up. So I worked really hard and I got that album done. He goes, the amount of times I sat there by myself, creating my own beats, hitting record, going in the booth, doing my vocal takes all by myself, without the ability to stop and start the recorder, and just going back and editing the album together himself. And he goes, look, it's part of the song Breakthrough. He says, look, when I succeeded, all the guys that never showed up on a consistent basis wanted my spoils because they had walked in the room at one point in time. They did push a button once. And they wanted the accolade of having really slaved over the product. So you'll find that there are people that will do that to you. And you might also find that they're like you. They are you. You're the one that wants all the prizes for just sort of phoning it in. Well, I did my dance. I got 50,000 likes on YouTube. Shouldn't I be famous already? Answer? No, not at all, man. One, you got to replicate that perfection every single time you do whatever it is you do, right? I mean, how many of you would buy the second album of your favorite artist if it sucked? Would you just buy it because you're like, oh, well, I support this person, so I'm just going to buy his or her album because they made it the next album? You know, maybe if they're a musical genius like Prince, who used to change his sound every album, and so you had to kind of change your brain from Purple Rain to Around the World in a Day to Sign of the Times. It was totally different every time he came up with an album, but you knew he was a genius, and so it was just a matter of you figuring out the genius in that particular album. And luckily he would stick a few songs that would get on the radio, so it helped us adjust, but that's his brilliance. Very few people in the world can do that, right? Jack Nicholson barely ever changed his methodology of acting his entire life, from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to, was it Wag the Dog? Wasn't he in that one too? But he is who he is, right? I don't think he was in Wag the Dog. That was De Niro. But anyway, well, let me get you hip to something else. And this is something that people take a long time to learn. When you're born, you're pristine, right? Your skin is smooth and your soul is pure, and you're just a product of God. As you go through life, it makes you a little cynical, right? You meet people that lie, and you meet people that take advantage of you. You meet dumb people and smart people. Dumb people take advantage of you, don't even know that they're doing it, right? It's not that they're bad people, they just don't know. They don't have any empathy or sympathy because their brain hasn't elevated to that level yet, or they lost it at some point. When you come out here, and it's really anywhere in your region that is like a Hollywood, you could be the one in a million that has a great ride. And, sadly, the industries have been totally polluted by perverts at this point, so some of that goes away with just that whole regiment, right? But what were your options before you moved away from your family to chase this dream? Well, you could be close to your family, wherever you do come from. You could get married, you could have some kids, you can get a normal job. Maybe your job is part of your dream. Maybe your job is just to put food on the table, and your real dream is to raise your family. Maybe you like fishing. Maybe you like building drag race cars, or whatever it is you do. But you use all your money from your job just to go get these other things. But you have this close-knit family, and you have, if you're born and raised in a particular region and you were fortunate enough not to move away, move all over the United States like I had in my life, you get to keep your friends your whole life. It's very powerful. But what I see is a lot of times when I go back to my hometown, which is a little tiny town in Kansas, I bump into people that seem to be a little on the defensive. That they didn't come to California and do something special. And I'm sitting there looking at them like, you're crazy. You're crazy. What you have is what most people who have jumped into this machine that is Hollywood and music are sort of wishing they had never let go. Now, the only exceptions to the rule are those people that got the scratch-off ticket with the $5 million prize, right? And there's very few of those people in the entire world. If you think we have 7.5 billion, why don't you divide like 2,000 by 7.5 billion, and that's the percentage of people that really get this kind of lifestyle. So you can't, again, go see my episode on lottery lifestyle. It's the idea that you're going to win the lottery ticket and be this amazing special person. The problem is once you leave your home, you get yourself committed to sort of a public exhibition of what you've done with your life. So some people will come out here and they have told their friends and family where they are, who may have expressed some concern about their decision. Like, honey, are you sure you want to go out there, man? I've heard a lot of crazy things, and there are Weinsteins out there, and there's a lot of girls that go out to become actresses and they become porn stars, so be very careful. And they push it back. They say, screw you, right? And now they're out here and they are committed to something, but they can't get the something because they keep trying to shortcut their talents. Maybe they don't really have the talent they think they have. Maybe they're tone deaf, but they want to be a singer. How many times have you seen American Idol auditions where the kid comes in, butchers a song, and they go back out without their ticket to continue on the show, and the parents run in the show in front of the judges and go, you don't know talent if you could see it, right? And all of us sit at home going, wow, the kid's tone deaf and the mother has no idea, or the father or whatever has no idea how unskilled their child is. Simon Cowell gets a bunch of bad press because he's the meanie, right? Or at least back in the day when he was on American Idol, right? Another big moment of truth is that guy is probably one of the nicest managers / agents you could ever talk to. He's brutally honest about what it is, and he does it with a fairly soft tone. Now, I don't think that's your thing. Even Randy will say it, or back in the day, oh, dude, I don't think this is your thing, man. Super nice. Super nice. What you really run into here is statements like, don't ever fucking call me again. You're absolutely talentless. If I ever see you again, I'm going to put you on a list and you'll never be able to walk in front of another human being. But if nothing else, don't fuck with me. You're absolutely worthless. That's the kind of stuff I've heard people have to endure out here. And so you don't want to get that kind of statement at your soul, because you might believe it. If you do, you're going to have to nut up and say, okay, geez, they're right. I don't need to quit necessarily. If I want to keep going to the next level, I'm going to have to get in front of that mirror and get really serious. I'm going to have to find people that will tell me I suck and keep working on it until they tell me I'm okay. Plenty of people have done it. But you got to have that tenaciousness and that really thick skin, right, to endure that sort of feedback and continue going. But now here's sort of a light at the end of the tunnel. We have thousands of people behind the camera. We have thousands of people in the producing room, right, in the mixing room, who started off their life saying, I want to be the person in front of the camera. I want to be the person on the stage. And they did it. And some of them are extremely talented, but they don't have the look. They're fat. They're not very attractive. And they're unwilling to lose weight and whatever. They get the right genetics that the public thinks is attractive on stage. Believe me, there's been some questionably looking people that became extremely famous, and they're extremely famous to the day. So you should almost not listen to any type of attraction issue. But they become part of the production. They become a director of photography. They become some sort of editor. They participate in the art on the more complex side, which is really bringing it all together to make it the final product. They become record producers. They become sound engineers. Yeah, they wanted to be the person on stage, but now they're sitting there going, wow, I get to go home to my bed every single night, see my kid, see my wife, my husband, whatever, and I don't have to get on that goddamn tour bus. I don't have to use cocaine because I don't need it. And I get to get the Grammy too. When this music gets a Grammy from LL Cool J, or you go off to the Academy Awards and you get your Academy Award because you're a sound engineer. Maybe you're a writer. There's all kinds of writers. There's the writers that write the original scripts. There's rewriters that edit the script. There's people that just write dialogue for scripts. There's a million different jobs behind the scenes that you can get into, and you shouldn't cut those short. Because I've talked to people that say, oh, I refuse to be a part of anything less than the very top. Okay, that's a nice goal. You better be one hell of a person to be knocking J.J. Abrams out of his director chair, right? I don't agree with everything he's ever made, but for what he's responsible for, I think he does a fairly good job, right? So now who would listen to this episode, right? Some of you are actually pondering this sort of lifestyle, so you listen to the whole thing. Some of you will just listen because you're fans of the show, and it's just interesting to listen to in your car or wherever you are, right? This sort of lesson that I've learned, all of this from other people, of course, right, is very valuable if you're living what most people call a normal life. I've had friends of mine that wanted to be a part of this lifestyle that I'm talking about. They visited Los Angeles. Some of them came out here to live for a little while. They saw the machine. They went behind the curtain. They met the wizard. And they were like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I am fortunate that wherever I am from is a loving, wonderful place, and I've got a great family, or I've got good friends, and I am going to go back to where I came from. And now when I'm there and I'm living that quote-unquote normal life, I know that I win more every single day than any of these guys that have the platinum albums or all the golden statues at home, right? I got my first celebrity client, I think when I was about 27 years old. And she's a lead singer of a trio band, an R&B trio band back in the day, super duper famous. I listened to her music all the time, and a buddy of mine knew her, and they said, you got to talk to Mark because he's going to handle this for you. And I drove to her house. It was in the Bay Area, and it was just a nice little house in a track home community. And I go inside, and I'm sitting with her, and to my right are the Grammys. To my right is all the music, MTV Music Awards. Well, by the way, those things are super heavy. And she's this gorgeous person. She's tremendously talented. She's the lead singer in this band, right? And she had a roommate. And she had a roommate because she needed it financially, right? And she was smart. She's like, look, I can spend all my savings on that other room, but why not get a roommate so I can save my money, because this train is going to end, all right? And this band was ultra famous, okay? But I would say this was 1997, 98, somewhere in there. By 2005, I don't think they've released another song. They're done, and they've been done for almost 15 years. I don't know what she does now. I hope she nest egged enough away that she doesn't have any issues. I don't know if she's married. I don't know anything about her anymore. She was a soft, kind soul. She had a hell of a manager, let me tell you. A wicked old lady. Whew. The sickness that I see that happens in this world, and it doesn't always have to do with fame, okay, or some sort of celebrity career, is that people get convinced that what they have is not good. It's not sufficient. And so they will convince themselves, and it's usually by watching television or looking at the internet too much, they'll convince themselves that what they have, which is cherished by all the people that have this other thing, isn't any good. And there's nothing worse than someone telling you that you're not amazing, that you don't have something amazing at your disposal. It's horrible. You don't deserve someone to tell you that. And if all these celebrities' lives were so wonderful, then how could TMZ make any money? They have the same problems with their kids. They have the same problem with their money. They have the same problem with their spouses. And honestly, let's say someone becomes some sort of worker in a small town. You put shoes on the citizens of the town. We used to have this shoe store downtown. And it was the parents owned it and formed it, and I saw the son work there from his teenage years all the way into his retirement. They shut the place down because I think Walmart destroyed him at one point. But I remember taking my daughter there because it was a famous place in town. I got her some shoes. And I remember watching this guy put the shoes on my daughter, and there's this look on his face like, I can't believe I'm in my 40s putting shoes on children. And I remember here I am in LA, and I'm in the Bay Area, and I've had lots of fortunate things happen to me, and I'm sitting there looking at him going, man, I would switch places with you in 2 seconds. You got to live in your hometown your whole life. You got to own a business, so you didn't have to have a boss that told you what to do. Now, unfortunately, again, the big corporation Walmart destroyed them, which is something we have to fix in this country, but he had it all, and he thought he didn't have anything. I could just see it in his face, Does that mean you shouldn't have goals and strive for things? No. But this grass is greener thing, man, it happens all the time in relationships, right? People are married to amazing people. But, they look around the world, and especially the internet, Facebook and all this other stuff. And what's Facebook? Facebook is the game of pretending to have a life better than you have. And they get convinced, and then they start meandering around. Now, maybe you need to change partners. I don't know. I'm not judging here, but a lot of times you don't need to, but you're convinced that you do. And that's going to be a decision you have to make for yourself, right? Anyway, I hope this was valuable for you guys. I think you feel me. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. There's audio and video there. I have fixed the first 100 episodes that I had pointed to vid.me, which is now gone. And so I flipped them back over to YouTube. There's a locked Facebook page, and there's a Patreon account for those of you who want to contribute. To all those of you who do, I appreciate it. Take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.